Hi guys, and welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. Please ignore the glare in my glasses. If you can't see my eyes, just pretend I'm one of those anime guys that does this, and because I'm all sinister and, you know, it like makes the lenses opaque, just pretend, oh, what am I doing? Just pretend that's what's going on. But today, guys, boosh, I'm going to be reviewing Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler. And you can't see this because there's glare on it, but I'm going to flash up the cover. Look at how gorgeous this cover is. This cover is amazing. So, before I tell you what you thought, before I tell you what I thought about it, let me go ahead and tell you what this book is about. So, this is a book about two siblings that were separated. There's Jair, who is the older brother, and Maya, who is the younger sister. They are separated when they're kids, and through an event that it's a kind of a forced separation. So Maya ends up working for the Republic as kind of a student in their ways and in learning their magic and their ways of kind of policing this illicit technology. And Jair spends his entire life trying to bring down the Empire. And that is the story in the most simplest way I can describe it. Now, long ago, there was this race called the Chosen that had the mastery of this magic called Dayat that let them kind of shape the elements and do a bunch of stuff with. We're not 100% certain everything they were able to do. And they opposed this race called the Ghouls, who were apparently these creatures who dealt in much more like steel kind of technology, but technology mixed with kind of like biotics, like biotech, to where they created these kind of like mechanical slash biological like constructs. So not like an android, but these just like kind of like, I don't know, like a robot dog, but with like flesh exposed and stuff like that. Like everything has like fungus on it or some kind of like fleshy components to it. None of the machines are pure machine. It's all combined with tissue and stuff like that, and that's the best way to do it. And so the Chosen didn't like that, and so they went after him, and the Ghouls released this plague, and this plague also like kind of warped dead bodies to where like they became these plague spawn things. Like any dead body would kind of like combine with other dead bodies around it, so you got a little dog head sticking out here, and
ew.
You got two dog heads merged right here, and,
ew.
And there's nothing but muscle on the outside, there's no skin or anything. These nasty, like horrific Lovecraftian beasts.
Ew.
And the plague started killing all the Chosen, and before the Chosen left, they established the Twilight Order, which is to police the world from ghoul stuff, to make sure that the humans and stuff, to make sure the ghouls are gone and humans don't use ghoul tech, which is called Dakia. And so fast forward hundreds of years later, and here we are. Maya works for the Order of the Twilight. She's an Agathios, which is kind of a Jedi in training. A lot of people will compare this to Star Wars.
This is madness.
And this is because Django Wexler himself, in the author's note, says that this book came out of a discussion about Star Wars. It's not a Star Wars book, but it came out of a discussion about Star Wars.
This is madness.
And you can see Star Wars' influence here. It is not as pronounced as some people say it is. I forgot that it was about Star Wars really early on, but there is an order of people who can manipulate magic, who go through training in order to manipulate magic. But the thing that makes it the most Star Wars comparison are the way that the Twilight Order actually manipulate their magic. So when you become an Agathios is a Jedi in training. A full Jedi is called a Centaur, and they're basically like Roman Jedi. They manipulate Dayat. Only the Chosen could manipulate Dayat freely. The Twilight humans have to touch what's called a Haken in order to establish a link with the Dayat so they can use it. Haken are sword hilts. They are empty sword hilts. There's no blade. They're empty sword hilts. And once you touch them, your Dayat takes a form, and so it becomes essentially a lightsaber. And that is where the biggest comparison is. Now, there is something really cool, because it's not just light. Each Centaur has its own element. So Maya, our protagonist, manipulates fire, so it becomes a fire sword. And once she is touching her Haken, she can also manipulate fire and create like fire walls, drop little traps on the ground, like little fire droplets that when you touch them they explode. We see some people who have manipulate wind, others manipulate kind of like little mini black holes, like gravity type stuff. We see people with lightning powers. So it's not just a lightsaber. It's, you know, can be a bunch of different kind of elemental saber. And I thought that was really cool. The way we see the different elements manifest when all of the when the centaurs are manipulating their Deot, that's really cool. Especially in some of the duels that we see. There's some dueling scenes where it's Deot versus Deot, like fire versus wind. Those scenes are really, really cool and some of my favorite in there. And so that's where the Star Wars comparison basically comes from. And Jair over here hates the Republic because they took his sister away from him and he wants to bring them down, and that's his motivation. So, what did I think about this book? It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
And I'm most disappointed in this book because I wanted to like it more than I did. I wished I liked it more than I did because I love Django Wexler. If you haven't read anything by Django Wexler, you need to go do that because I think he's a fantastic writer, and I think he writes female characters really, really well. One of my favorite female characters really in anything is the soldier Winter Irnglass from the Shadow Campaign series, which is the series I've read by Wexler. It's about the Napoleonic War, and it's very, very, very military heavy. And it's the Napoleonic War with like magic and demons, and it's really, really good. If you haven't read that, you should. So, there were three main problems that I had that I think took away from my enjoyment of this book. So the first one is I read this at completely the wrong time, because I do think this is a good book. Don't get me wrong, this is a good book, and I never had any problems reading it, and I went through it pretty quickly. I never dreaded going back to it, so it is good. But it felt strangely reminiscent of Arm of the Sphinx and Foundryside, which I just finished reading. I just read those right before this. Some of the tech stuff reminds me of Arm of the Sphinx and the heist kind of stuff where there's a ragtag group of renegades who are plotting to steal an eldritch artifact from a merchant house that doesn't know really what they have. I'm like, oh, I just read that in Foundryside. And in both of those instances, I think those other books just did it better or did it more to my liking, if you will. The second reason is because so Django Wexler has his adult series, Shadow Campaigns, and then he also wrote a young adult series, which I have not read. This feels like a bridge between the two. It felt more like a YA novel to me than it felt like Shadow Campaigns, which is his adult series. It felt more like a YA novel with some Lovecraftian horror sprinkled in, because there's some gruesome crap in this, and there's some there's some adult themes in this. So it's not a YA book. It's not a YA book, but it felt that way to me. And I don't know if it's just because of the young protagonist. And keep in mind, I'm coming off of older protagonists. Yes, Sanchia is 20 in Foundryside, but the rest of the cast is older. In Senlin Ascends, most of the characters are older. In the Greatcoats, the characters are older. Here, the main characters are 20, Jair is 20, and Maya is 17. So they handle things. I mean, they act like kids. They handle things the way that young people would. And so for that reason, the romance aspects especially, I'm just like, a lot of people really like the romance in this book, and that's fine, and that's great. To me, I didn't love it. I was just like, oh, come on, guys, let's just move this along. Let's move this along so I can see the plot of the book. And none of that's bad. It just wasn't to my taste. So the third thing, and this is probably what tanked it more than anything else, is I didn't love a lot of the characters. So Jair is with this kind of rebel band that's kind of far away from the home of the Republic. So they kind of delve and dabble in minor forms of ghoul tech, like things that are like glow sticks or like quick heal, they call it, which is like a healing potion type thing. And so it's nothing major, and sometimes they find bigger ghoul artifacts, and that's when the Order comes and says, no! But so it feels like very Avalanche-y, very Final Fantasy VII Avalanche, let's bring down the government. And there are a couple characters in that little group that I really, really liked. Same thing with Maya, her little group. There's a couple characters that I like. There's one, if you ever wonder what Dwight Schrute was like as a Jedi.
Yeah, well, look, what about me?
Read this book. You'll find exactly what it is. There's one guide that talks about how every time he guides a group, someone dies horribly. That guy's funny. The love interest, felt like it was ripped straight out of like Tales of Destiny or Tales of Destiny 2, wherever Philia is, the green-haired girl with the glasses. It's almost identical. It has to be her. But there is one character that I hate. It's probably my new least favorite character in fiction. I can't think of a character that I dislike more. Like, even characters who have done despicable things. That I hate you for doing that, but that's cool a lot of times. This character was so insufferable. And I don't know if this is a trope. I've said this is like the second time. By the time you see this, it's the third time I've said this trope. I don't know if it's an actual trope, but if it is, I'm inventing it right now. And it's the danger makes me horny trope. This character can't take anything seriously. Everything's a big joke. Everything's like, oh, I'm an adrenaline junkie. I have to kind of constantly throw us in danger because otherwise I have to sit and examine why I'm so sad and tortured inside. And it's pathetic. It's not a good character. I hate it. And, you know, even when there's like character injury or character death, these characters that suffer from this trope, they don't give people a chance to mourn. They're just like, they just tick everybody off because they don't take anything seriously. And, you know, they're about to die and they're like, ooh, we're about to die. You know what we should do? We should get it on. And I hate it. I hate it. I hate it every time I see it. I hate it in any book I see it in. And this character is the embodiment of this. And I hate this character. I hate it. I hate them. And I honestly think that without this character, I would have enjoyed... I might have even given this a whole star more without this character. That is how much this particular character drove me crazy. Guys, there is a lot of cool stuff in here. The first half of the book is this is what I mean, where it just feels younger than what... I don't know. It didn't strike the right notes for me. The first half was kind of easily predictable. The second half was not as much. However, I didn't love where it chose to go. Where I thought it was going, where I predicted it was going, I actually would have enjoyed more than where it ended up. The whole thing feels very much like a prequel. It feels like they're setting up something, because where the first book ends is like, oh, okay, I understand where you're going. I'm not 100% certain why we didn't start there. It just feels very prologue-y. Like, it just feels like the things that should have happened. The climaxes were in the wrong places. It wasn't the climax that I was hoping for. But like I said, there are a lot of cool ideas. The ghoul tech and the plague spawn and just the ghouls in general and the idea of who were the chosen and the Republic kind of wrestling people within the Republic, wrestling with, like, is there corruption within the Republic? Like, how hard do you come down on the populace that is experimenting with this ghoul tech? The increasing kind of discovery of machines in the world is really interesting. The use of Dayot and the different elements I really, really enjoyed. But I didn't love Jair or Maya all that much. It just wasn't the right book for me. Now, that being said, I am definitely going to read the second one. I think the second one is going to be much better than this one. I really do. Because of all of the stuff that went on in this book, they don't need to do again. I think the second one is going to be really, really good. I mean, there's a lot of, like, you know, anime villains and mustache twirling, and there's not a ton of nuance in the villains in this book. And I think that bothers me also, because I really like nuance. No, that's actually not true. I also really like a good mustache twirl. I just didn't really care for them. It just didn't strike the right notes with me. I am going to read the second one. The series is called Burningblade and Silvereye. And I think the second one's going to be excellent. And I trust Django Wexler as an author. Like I said, I love the Shadow campaigns. The final thing that I loved and didn't love is it's a sibling story, and I thought we were going to get more of the siblings. They're separated at the end of the prologue, page 9. They're separated. We didn't have any of the buildup of seeing them as loving siblings before the separation. Now, that's good, because the book don't waste no time. It's just like, go. It's going. And the last third of the book specifically is just like a whirlwind. Stuff happens super, super quick. But because we didn't have that, I didn't really feel the closeness between them. And so Jair's motivation, his anger at the Republic for taking his sister, didn't ring as true to me as it could have. But at the same time, I mean, that's the quickness is what's responsible for the book flying along at a brisk pace. Because usually, you know, we spend several chapters with the siblings and then they're separated, that kind of thing. And so it just didn't work for me. Now, on the Kingfin approval system, I give this book it's good. It is a good book. It is a good book. It's in no way a bad book. And out of 5 stars, it's a 3-star book. I didn't hate it. I read it easily. It just wasn't what I wanted it to be. Now, this should not discourage you from reading this. There are people who love this book. I know Matt over at Books Rebound gave this 5 stars. He really liked it. You should definitely go check out his review. I'll link it down below. Go check out his review. Make sure you're not just, don't just take my word for it, because just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's not going to be for you. So take a look at his review and see what he liked about it. Maybe he likes the stuff that I just didn't. So you'll be able to decide whether it's for you or not. I do want to say that if you haven't read any Wexler, this is a great starting point for Wexler. If you're not into like super military fantasy, which is what Shadow Campaigns are, then start here. Maybe that's the problem. This book doesn't have any Janus Bet Valniches, which is my favorite character from the Shadow Campaigns, but especially if you don't like military fiction, this is a great entry point to Wexler. I think he's a great author, and I'm excited to see what the next book is. Anyway, guys, I hope this helps you decide whether or not Ash of the Sun sounds like it's for you. There's a lot of action. It does feel like it's action-packed. There's tons of fighting. There's, you know, good versus evil. So I think if you like Star Wars, if you're a huge Star Wars fan, I really do think you'll like this book. I didn't grow up loving Star Wars. Star Wars is fine, but I've never been like, oh, I gotta see the next one. If you are a big Star Wars fan, I do think you'll like this book. Well, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you found this informative, and as always, guys, I'll see you next time.